Hello and welcome back to Oddities with Fur. I am Fur. To be or not to be diagnosed? That is the question. So this episode is about being late diagnosed. And I know there's a lot of videos out there about being late diagnosed. People in their, late 20s, early 30s. Mine is really late diagnosed. I was diagnosed last year, just after I turned 52. So I've gone my entire life being undiagnosed. And I would like to talk about my journey, trying to get diagnosed, and what it was like not being diagnosed, what it's like afterwards. Talk to you about my experience, so that you can, first of all, just know that about me, and then maybe it'll be helpful for you too, if it's something you've already been through. So you don't feel alone in the struggles of getting late diagnosis as a female, AFAB female, I should say. And also, I want to start out by saying that I do not believe that diagnosis is necessary. I feel that being self-diagnosed is completely valid. If you believe you're autistic or have ADHD or OCD or whatever it may be, it's completely valid. And I think that everybody should be on that same page, but some aren't. So I'm going to start out, I guess, my story by telling you a little bit about my efforts to get diagnosed and why I thought I was autistic and had ADHD. And so like many of us, I had no clue my entire life. I was born in the early 70s and was in school through the 80s, and I didn't know any females that were autistic, and I didn't see autism portrayed on TV or in movies at all. I think Rain Man was the first time I saw someone with autism in a movie, and I knew I was nothing like Rain Man. And so during the pandemic, my kids, who are now in their 20s, realized they were autistic and started talking to me about it and wanting to get diagnosed. And so of course I was like, oh my gosh, what is this? I don't even know what that is or what it looks like, or what really. And so I started, of course, watching lots of reels and videos and reading everything I could get my hands on. And I was like, whoa, this sounds like me. So fast forward to 2021, still trying to get my kids diagnosed. We were living in another state at the time and on state health care, and we tried to get assessments, and the only place we could go to was awful. My kids had bad experiences, and so did I. There was a much older woman who did my assessment, or I thought was going to be an assessment, and she told me, let me look at my notes here. She said, "I don't like diagnoses. They're made by a bunch of white men in a room making up conditions." What? "I feel like a diagnosis can haunt and cripple a person for the rest of their life." What? Literally, that was my first. So, I mean, at least she didn't come out and say, go through like the testing and say, "Oh, you're not autistic," because that would have been really horrible too. That would have been really hard, I think. I don't know if I could have continued if that was the case. But she was just like, I don't believe in diagnoses. And I was like, "Well, what are you doing this job for then?" And like, what? Anyway, so I was like, wow, you can't help me. And I'm just back to square one, you know? And the process of trying to get diagnosed and sitting in front of a person, or it was virtual, but still, for an autistic person, it's incredibly uncomfortable. And the amount of anxiety leading up to even just a phone call for me is intense. So it took a lot out of me, and there was nothing else I could do at that point. So my second attempt, I had moved to a different state, was going to a new place, and I was like, hey, I of course read reviews and everything, and I was like, hey, maybe it'll happen this time. Maybe I'll have a better experience. Somebody who actually does diagnose. Oh, and just backtrack real quick. The first diagnosis, she actually diagnosed me with PTSD. Anyway, obviously, we have that too. So, second diagnosis. I started going to a place. They set me up with a counselor who I absolutely loved. She was a young lady, and then they had a separate person who was a psychologist or psychiatrist. I always get those two terms mixed up, but she did actual diagnoses, like, autism and whatever else. So I was like, cool, let's try this again. I think it was only a year later. And so, of course, the nerves, and my kids were going through the same thing at the same place. Now, for my kids, they were trying to tell them that they had to quit smoking pot for 24 hours beforehand. And so they did that. And then they went back in and they were like, "Oh no, you need to stop smoking pot for longer." So my poor kids were going through like the ups and downs of that. And it was bullshit. It pissed me off. So then I go in for mine, and I get to my appointment, and they were like, "Oh, we don't have you down." And I was like, "What?" And they're like, "Oh yeah, you have a counseling appointment in an hour or half an hour, or I don't know. Maybe it was that they had scheduled me for the counselor instead." Anyway, can't remember. But I do know that I waited in that waiting room for 40 minutes. And I'm already super anxious. I don't know if I'm going to get in to see this woman. I don't know who she is. And I'm in the worst waiting room. The fluorescent lighting was so bright. There were people in there that smelled like chain smokers, and like it. Anyway, there was a kid in there that was being really loud, and the sensory overload was overwhelming. And I was panicking because I didn't know what was happening and how long I'd have to wait for another appointment if this didn't work. And so I'm like about to lose my shit, and she finally comes to get me, and she takes me back, and I'm like meltdown is imminent. And I can tell immediately that she's incredibly, pissy and irritated. And so I go into her office and I start crying. Because I'm like having a meltdown, and the amount of stress, and I lost it and I started crying. Just crying. I wasn't like, having full blown, it wasn't ugly. I was just crying. And she told me to stop it. She said, stop it. And she said it like that, like a parent scolding their kid who's irritated and just, like yucky. Like, you don't talk to people that way. You're a psychiatrist, psychologist, whatever. And I was like, I was furious and hurt. And she started asking me about the medications, because one of the things with the diagnosis was I was like, these antidepressants aren't working for me. They're making me feel awful. And I was already on my third one and I couldn't handle it. And so that was part of it, as I was going to talk to her about the medication and how I was feeling. And so she started out with that, asking me about my symptoms. And I was telling her, and she's like, you're making this up. These aren't even possible symptoms you can have, like possible side effects. Seriously, these are the people that we are putting our trust in, and we're at our most vulnerable states, and these are the people that we're having to deal with. Like, I am sorry if anybody watching has had a bad experience or multiple bad experiences, or someone you loved has. It is absolutely horrible. And my heart goes out to you. It's fucked up, and it makes me so angry. So I couldn't handle her. I got so upset. I was already meltdown. So I walked out. I was like, I can't see you. And so I walked out and I walked back up to the front counter, and I'm like, can I see my counselor now? There's still time, because the appointment was for her or whatever. And can I please see my counselor now? I'm really upset. That went horribly. And so then she was like, well, let me see if she can take you, and blah, blah, blah. She's like, yeah, go ahead and go back. And so I started walking back to my counselor's office, and the lady who just abused me was standing there talking to her. She was like, and I was like, oh my God. And it felt horrible, because I'm like, here's the woman who's actually my counselor, who's been kind to me, and she's talking shit about me to her. And I was like, oh no, you didn't. And I was like, I walked up and I was so upset. And so she was like, what is this? With like attitude, because I was upset. And I was like, you know what? You know what this is? It's emotions. Like, if you can't handle people's emotions, then maybe you should find another job. So I went into my counselor's office, and I was able to talk to her about the whole experience, and she was really kind and empathetic and felt bad for me. So that happened. That was my second, and it was absolutely horrible. I had PTSD from that. It really fucked me up, and I was so upset for so long. It took a lot to recover from it, and I honestly didn't think I was ever going to get diagnosed after that. I was like, well, because I don't know if I said this, but she had told me I couldn't be autistic because I had a job and I was married at one point. No. And that's what people used to think, right? It's crazy. So then we moved again. And where we moved to, my kids were able to find a place where they could get their assessment done for younger people. Somebody really good, really thorough. And she did their assessments and diagnosed them both with autism, ADHD, and lots of other things. And yeah, she was very thorough. But I knew I couldn't go to her because she only did younger people. And, you know, here I am in my early 50s. And but my friend that I made through work, I worked with her husband, and I was always like, your wife sounds awesome. I need to get together with her. And we finally did, and we were like instant besties. She's autistic and has ADHD as well. She was diagnosed with both by a woman who is also neurodivergent. So she told me about her, and she told me how awesome she is, and that she takes payments if you don't have insurance, and she does like discounts for if you don't make a lot of money. And so I was like, wow, this is awesome. And so I jumped at the chance and got on a waiting list, and it took me a while, but I was finally able to get the assessments done. And we started with autism, and it took like 5 to 7 sessions. It took a long time, partly because when I was answering questions, I was not just answering yes or no. Because I was like, oh yeah, I totally do that. All the sensory stuff, you know, like I would go into like details about each thing, and it took forever. So it's going to cost me a lot of money, but it was totally worth it. So when we finished, she said, congratulations, you're autistic and you have ADHD. And I literally cried happy tears. I was so relieved after so many years of, well, my whole lifetime being undiagnosed, and then having those horrible experiences and feeling like I'm never going to get diagnosed because I'm older and I have coped, you know. I'm super high masking. People can't tell I'm autistic. Maybe now they can because I'm learning to unmask, but yeah. So is it worth it? Some people say that when you're diagnosed with autism, you become more autistic, and it's hilarious. I totally see what they mean though, because when you're not diagnosed and it's not like official, or you don't know that you are, because like I said, self-diagnosis is legit and totally valid. But for me, having masked, my entire life, and being in my 50s now, yeah, like definitely feel more autistic now because I am able to embrace who I really am and be my authentic self and not feel bad about it. Feel like I'm able to ask for accommodations. Feel like I am able to say, no, I can't go to that party because parties make me super anxious and overstimulated. And, you know, just have boundaries, and learn to like really get to know what I need, what I can and can't do, and also learn how to have healthier relationships. And I've also, you know, in the past few years realized how difficult it is to have relationships with neurotypical people and also people who aren't queer. And they just don't get it. They don't understand what it's like. And it's really hard to communicate with them. But then when you're with a neurodivergent person, it's just so easy. Like, ugh. Especially if they like have all the autism and all the things that you have. It's like, wow, it's so easy. Like I get you. Feel so seen. So yeah, I think it's a matter of what you need and what you want. I think for me, being so late in life and having like the health problems I have with the lupus and everything that I, was diagnosed with the beginning of COVID, and knowing that it's just getting more and more difficult the older I get. Like work, I honestly, I quit my job 2.5 months ago because I was being discriminated against, and I was also being forced to work in conditions that made me sick, that flared up my lupus, even though they knew. They promised to protect me and prevent that, but then they continued to do it, and it cost me a ton of money, a ton of pain and suffering, and the discrimination was intense. So I quit. I couldn't take it anymore. I lost my shit, and because that's how I am. I put up with so much shit, and then I lose it, and it's like, you're dead to me. I'm gonna fucking unleash the Kraken on you, and reported it to HR, reported it to the EEOC, wrote very long letters and, not letting it go. Because my sense of social injustice is intense, as you can imagine. So, yeah, I think that the negative, I guess maybe one of the negatives to getting diagnosed is just knowing that it's probably not going to be easy. I think that there are most people, especially later diagnosed people, have bad experiences with trying to get diagnosed. Orion Kelly, that autistic guy, he has a podcast. He's on YouTube. He's on Spotify. He's written books. He had a bad experience trying to get diagnosed. And yeah, there's a lot of us. Shout out Orion Kelly. You rock. But yeah, like, it's not easy. So you're probably going to have bad experiences. Probably not going to be like first time easy, unless you get referred by word of mouth to someone who's good, which I highly recommend if you can find. But, you just have to ask yourself, is it worth it to me? For me, being so much older and needing disability, I knew I needed to have diagnoses in order to be able to do that. So, everybody's journey is different. Everybody's needs are different. And this world is crazy. It's not getting any easier. It's hard as hell to survive. I don't know how people can afford to live anymore with how expensive everything is and housing crisis and everything. So I'm here to tell my story. I'm not an expert. I'm new at all of this. And also to hear yours. I would love to hear your story and your situation, your suggestions. If you have any questions for me, feel free to shoot me any questions you have in the comments below. I would love to help. If there's anything I can do to help you, any information I can give you to help in your journey, I would love that so very much. So yeah, there's going to be a lot more videos. Some of them are going to be serious like this one, and some playful, and some educational, and some just info dumping about my special interests. I have a lot of them. So thank you so much for spending the time to watch this video, and for listening to my story. And I sure hope that things haven't been so hard for you. But I know realistically that if you're here, they probably have been. And my heart goes out to you, sending you lots of love and empathy and care and understanding. And let's all just stick together through this rough time and lean on each other. That's what I want to do here, is build a community where we can lean on each other and feel like we belong and we're not being judged, and we can be ourselves. So until next time, love you guys.